Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to share with you guys the books that I bought while I was on vacation in France, which is not too bad of a pile because I knew that one, because I was carrying my violin with me, that meant I didn't have my usual carry-on, which is what I use to bring books back home because they're heavy, so it's better to use a carry-on. So I knew I couldn't bring that many books for that reason. And then also, because I'd already been to France so recently, I figured there wasn't that much for me to buy. So I actually did pretty well and only came back with a few books. More importantly, I only bought like 2 books, to be honest. So that was very exciting. So let me tell you. Usually when I'm in France in the Alps, which is where I am in the summer typically, we have so many books at home that I read from there. So I had picked up to read Colline Hill by Giono, and I did end up reading this, which you will have seen in my vacation reading wrap-up video. But I read this, finished it, really enjoyed it, and then when I looked it up online, I found out that it's part of a trilogy. Now, this book does stand very well by itself, but it is technically part of a trilogy. And it turns out we already had them at home, so I just went onto the bookshelves and picked out the rest of the trilogy. So I picked up the second book, which is Un de Baumugnes, and then the last book, Reverzy. Now, these two, so this is translated as Hill into English. These 2 books do have very different titles. I would tell you what those are, but the internet's not working at home right now, and I can't look up what these books are. But I will have the English translation in the description box so you can check them out. So yeah, so I picked up the entire trilogy for free. So we're starting off good. 3 books on my book haul, 1 already read, and they were all free books. Now, another free book that I got was Le Passage, The Passage by Reverzy. This book is a book I know nothing about, but my mom grabbed it off the shelves and said, this book is beautiful, you must read it, it's an absolute must read. It's about a doctor and his experience with life and death and how he discusses it in this book. And she says it's beautifully written, it's beautifully told, and it's just emotionally huge in terms of reading. So I know nothing about this book other than the fact that my mom recommended it, and we have when our tastes are shared, they're very shared. Now I have a more broad reading than her. I read nonfiction and I read science fiction and more genres like that. But when it comes to our shared reading, we have very similar opinions. So I have no doubt that I will enjoy this book. Then with my mom, we love to visit vide-grenier when we are on vacation. And a vide-grenier means empty out your attic. And in France, it's basically where a bunch of people gather, usually in a church parking lot. It's organized by the community, and they obviously pay for the booth, but they're just trying to sell everything that's at home. So we like to go to those to pick up books and just go for a hunt, because usually they're at €1, and that allows us to do cover buys. It allows us to sort of experiment and try things that maybe we wouldn't purchase if we had to buy them at full price. So one of those books was Les Saints vont en enfer, which for me was definitely a title buy. So it means saints go to hell. And these editions, the Livre de Poche editions in France from back in the day, didn't have any blurbs on them whatsoever. So this is definitely just a title buy. I don't know what this book is about. I didn't look it up. I want to be surprised. And all I can say from the cover is that it looks like there are 4 young men gathering around a possibly dead body or a sick body, who knows. It's a gamble. So this book is by Gilbert Cesbron, again an author I also know nothing about, but I just thought I would try this. Another book that I picked up at the vide-grenier I picked up because it is, well, a title by, but also because it says that this author is a Nobel Prize winner. And so this book is L'Empereur du Portugal, so the Emperor of Portugal, and it's by the Nobel Prize winner Selma Lagerlöf. Now, this is an author, even the fact that she's a Nobel Prize winner, I don't know. I do follow the Nobel Prize of Literature, but I must admit, when it's an author I'm not already aware of who's won, their name tends to slip out of my mind more quickly, and that's unfortunate, but that's just the case of everything. Now, this does have a blurb, but the blurb is not, I wasn't too sure exactly what it's about. It starts off saying that it's the history of a furious love, of an absolute passion, and it's one of the most beautiful novels that Selma Lagerlöf has written. So I decided, just with that and the fact that she's a Nobel Prize winner, that I would give this a try without too much looking up and seeing what other people's opinions are. So that's the Emperor of Portugal. Let's just try this out. Now, the 3 books that I did buy, one of them is the continuation of the manga series Detective Conan. This is volume 105. This is the only manga that I still read in French, because I started reading this in French before I could read Japanese back in high school, and I didn't want to switch in the middle, so this is the only manga that I still read in French. And I really want this series to end, because having to buy manga at €7.50 per volume is so expensive. Like, I understand it's worth it. Translations, they should get paid. Translators should get paid. The effort to bring amazing manga to France, that effort should be paid. But when I can buy these for 100 yen, for $1 used in Japan, it definitely makes a huge difference in terms of price. But it is what it is. I got the latest volume, so I'm excited to read that. Then I'm very excited for this next book, because this is the book I've been wanting for a long time. It's been a book I've been wanting for a few years, but every time I tried to find it, it wasn't readily available in bookstores, and they always had to order it. And I would always remember to ask for it on like the last day of my trip. So obviously I can't wait for a book to come in on order. But because of the resurgence it had in the English language world, and because of all the popularity it's had in the English language world, France caught on. And even though this is a Belgian book, France caught on, and I think they restocked the book. They reprinted it out. Now that means that they took advantage and they brought it back in hardback, which makes it more expensive. I did pay €20 for this, which is a lot of money. But that is Moi qui n'ai pas connu les hommes, I Who Have Never Known Men, by Jacqueline Harpman. I really enjoy a good dystopian every once in a while. They're fun books, they're thought-provoking books. Even when the book isn't as good, which I'm not saying this one will be, but even when a book isn't as good, they usually just make you think, right? That's what a dystopia is all about. It's taking our sort of reality, twisting it to make it into a reality that doesn't exist but could. And so I really do enjoy a good dystopia. And yes, I Who Have Never Known Men has gotten so much press on BookTube ever since Emily Fox, the Canadian YouTuber, first mentioned it on her channel, and just blew up since then. And yeah, France just caught on that everyone wants to read this book. And since I can read it in the original language, which is French, although again, it is a Belgian author, not a French author, yeah, I just always wanted to read it in the original language. So very excited about this. I think I'll get this one sooner than later. And then the last book was a book I wasn't expecting to buy. I was pretty much done with purchasing, but on the very last day, also I should mention, yeah, because I was in the Alps, other than the Vigne in the Alps, it's not like Paris. There aren't bookstores in every single corner of the town. You're kind of in the middle of the nowhere, unless you kind of drive out to the only bookstore in the area. There aren't really too many options. And so I had to wait till I was in Paris, and I was only in Paris for 2.5 days. So not a lot of time for browsing. But so on the very last day, my flight was at 10 p.m. So I did have a good full day. But on my very last day, we walked past this bookstore that I had never seen before and looked really, really interesting. And again, I don't have the internet, so I can't tell you the exact title of the bookstore, but I will put it in the description because it's now one of my favorite bookstores in Paris. I will be going there every single time. So definitely gonna put that in the description box. But I believe it was something like, I think it was just called Le Monde, so the world, and then traveling by the bookstore or something like that. Again, I'll put it in the description box. But I absolutely love the bookstore because of the way, the refreshing way, the new way, or just a different way from usual, that it was organized, which basically it's a travel bookstore, but it's not limited to just travel books. So it's not like the Notting Hill bookstore, but it's organized by region. So either by continent or just the major region, if there's a lot of countries within it, or some of the more popular countries get slightly bigger section, but it's organized by region. And the bookstore has two main parts. And then it's the bottom level of the building, as typical in Paris, but there's the door to the building cuts right through it. So it's two parts of the bookstore that are connected by a sort of bridge above the doorway, which makes it also a very visually beautiful bookstore. And so every bookstore, every part is organized by region. So the North Americas, the South Americas, the basic European area, but then they also kind of split up the Russian speaking countries or the Slavic countries. And then you cross the bridge and you get into North America, and then you get the Asias on the top floor. And it was just so beautifully organized because it does have travel guides to all these regions, but it also has cookbooks for food in those regions. It has general nonfiction, whether that's history or previous history, current history, general politics kind of nonfiction, but then also just fiction from representatives of that country, very famous authors, but also slightly lesser known authors. So it's such a good mix that really lets you dive into a region or a country, and it's absolutely beautiful. There are so many forward-facing books that are placed out. There's a selection in each region that they're focusing on. Really love it. Just absolutely recommend that bookstore. Obviously it's in French, but definitely recommend that bookstore. And so yeah, when we got into the Asias, I saw this book and had to get it because it's definitely right up my alley in terms of my current interest. And this is nonfiction, and that is Nam Phuong, la dernière impératrice du Vietnam. So Nam Phuong, the last empress of Vietnam, by François Joyaux. This is just sounded fascinating because apparently, so again, last empress of Vietnam, and she's actually buried in France. So at one point she fled to France, lived the rest of her life there, it seems, and was buried there. And this just seemed like a good continuation of my current Asian history studies. So I've focused a lot on Japan in my life. I did all Japan throughout the war. Right now I'm on a China kick, definitely going through the history of China and literature of China. And I think what better book than, I mean, I'm not going to move on from China yet or anytime soon, but I like the idea of starting to dip my toes into the history of other countries. Vietnam, I'm very familiar with Vietnam in terms of the Vietnam War, and I'm very familiar with Vietnam when it comes to current Vietnamese history and a little bit of French Indonesia. So that period I'm very familiar, but this is a part of that gap between the past history and current history that I didn't realize I was missing. So I think this will be a really great book to read. I always give me a nonfiction with an emperor or empress in full garb looking gorgeous on a cover, and then I'll buy it. It's just, it looks so good. I mean, right next to this book was the nonfiction about her husband, and I was tempted to get both, but I decided to start with The Wife With because she's the one who caught my eye at the very beginning. So very excited about that. So yeah, these are the books that I picked up while I was in France. A very demure haul, a haul I think makes a lot of sense, and but also welcome a little bit of experimentation, a little bit of fun, and a little bit of exploration of new works and new countries and new histories. So very excited about this. I hope you're excited to see these books in the near future on my channel. In any case, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!